officer has died, while several others are still missing after a lorry they were traveling in was swept away by floods last night. A developing story right there. I'll be giving you more details later on. But now, I'd like us to focus on matters Labour Day, coming at a time when the country is facing COVID-19, and today is Labour Day. And unlike previous years, there will be no national celebration that we usually witness at the Uhuru Park due to the coronavirus crisis. Instead, a few KOTU leaders, led by the Secretary General, Francis Atwoli, will be addressing the nation from the State House, Nairobi, together with the President, Uhuru Kenyatta. So for details about this unusual Labour Day, let's speak to our editor, Henry Githaiga, from our City Centre studios. Henry Githaiga, allow me to say happy Labour Day despite this coronavirus crisis. But what do we know so far concerning today's celebration?
Happy Labour Day to everyone out there. It is a unique and unprecedented day for everyone across the world as we celebrate Labour Day. Most people do not have jobs because their jobs have been affected in one way or the other by the coronavirus. And even here in Kenya, where normally we have some pomp and colour, it is the day that the workers are at the front line. They show off their skills, they march in a parade to Uhuru Park. But this year, because of the social distancing rules and the measures needed to curb the coronavirus, that will not be happening. However, there will be a low-key event at State House where the President will be speaking to both Labour leaders from both sides of the divide, that is the Federation of Kenya Employers and KOTU. And they will be talking about how to keep workers at work. Already, we got an indication yesterday from both parties that they had entered an agreement to make sure that nobody is laid off. And all measures that are needed to keep people working are taken. So employers this time around and workers finding themselves in a very tight ship that they will need to work together to come up with solutions to keep the economy going and to even keep their own livelihoods going.
Henry, it's good you're talking about, Kenya celebrating this day amid job losses, salary pay cuts because of COVID-19. And every Labour Day, Kenyans are used to probably the government talking about the wage bill. And what do we expect, today from State House? Are we expecting President Uhuru Kenyatta to give, Kenyans probably a salary increase, especially the civil servants?
No, that is unlikely to happen because, again, as we mentioned, it is unprecedented times for everyone, because even for the government that has about maybe over 1 million employees, they are also struggling to raise funds. So it is very unlikely that there will be any talk of a pay rise. Already there were measures put in place to safeguard those people who do earn the lowest, because the president waived taxes for most of them, anyone earning below 24,000 shillings. And that is one of the measures the president is likely to highlight today, talking about how effective it will be. And also, we are aware that both KOTU and FKE and together with the Ministry of Labour did enter into an MOU to tame any further job losses. And the deal here would be that some people would either be sent home on unpaid leave, or that they would not be laid off from the payroll. And it's a tricky situation, because even when you're on unpaid leave, the employer still has to pay some of the benefits that you enjoy. For example, your pension, NSSF, NHIF. So even for those on unpaid leave, there is an amount of money that employers still need to fork out to ensure that their welfare is catered for and taken care of. Speaking to FKE yesterday, we asked them whether they had seen a mass closure of companies. They said they can only confirm about 10 companies that may have closed for good, and they indicated that those companies were already in distress even before the coronavirus. So they said what they have seen is a lot of temporary closures, and that they expect that these jobs will come back once the coronavirus goes away. And what they will be seeking this time around is for government to come up with measures to cushion the smaller businesses and prepare them for reopening once the coronavirus comes to an end.
And Githaiga, I think this, if I'm not wrong, probably the president will also take this opportunity to talk about the much talked about funds that have been utilized by the Ministry of Health. And I'm talking about the billions of shillings that the breakdown that was given by the ministry. Kenyans are raising questions, including COTU leader Francis Atwoli. So are we likely to see the president talk about it, also coming at a time when we do not have an auditor general in office, creating a loophole for misappropriation of public funds?
Yeah, this is a really tricky question, because even if you look at the supplementary budget that the president signed yesterday, there are a few questions that linger, especially even in the Ministry of Health. The budget for such things as preventative health care had been highlighted as some of those budgets that would be cut. The supplementary budget had also indicated cuts towards the creation of dams for mitigation of flooding. There are a number of questions around the supplementary budget, because when the budget was initially done, we didn't expect things like flooding, and we also were not expecting that the Ministry of Health would have its own issues. Once they put out the amount of money that they have been spending or have been receiving, this exposed it to a level of public scrutiny, with Kenyans having to question how the funds are being used and whether or not they were used in priority areas. So yes, we would expect the president to address this, given that a lot of Kenyans do feel that the manner in which public funds are managed in general does not look at the issues facing Kenyans. So we would expect the president to address whether there is misappropriation of funds within the Ministry of Health, how those funds will be utilized. And we've also seen a lot of youth queuing in sort of the semi-permanent establishments and slums in Kenya, trying to get jobs that the president promised. And the president had promised that quite a number of youth would be absorbed to do the sort of street cleaning and fumigation that needs to be done to ensure that there is no community spread of the coronavirus. So we expect him to talk about quite a number of things. That is the creation of those jobs, the criteria that was used to employ people for those jobs, and also how the money is being spent, where the donations have come in, even the ones that came in kind, in terms of the masks, the hand sanitizer. Where have these resources been deployed? How do you get access to them? And how can one verify whether those funds were spent for that particular purpose? Already the Ministry of Health had been indicating that the figures put out there, most of that money had not been spent. But what Kenyans are questioning is the intention to spend the money on some of the things that they look at as trivial, in terms of even trying to accommodate people, trying to buy tea, snacks, airtime. They are questioning how these funds are allocated, and whether or not the big allocations given to some of these functions are really necessary, as they would be incurred in the normal procedures of work of government anyway, and had been budgeted for differently.
Henry Githaiga, thank you so much. Our editor, talking to us about the unusual Labor Day celebration that is being, can I say, celebrated during this time of COVID-19.